So, as I said, today is all about homes and not houses. And I think kind of the genesis of it came from a post that I put, or an article that I wrote for LinkedIn towards the end of last year, talking about how we might do things a little bit differently for, particularly around kind of retirement communities and kind of housing as we age. I've done try to do a article or a post on LinkedIn every Thursday, and this kind of particular one was thinking about housing as we age, which typically means, certainly in terms of policy, things like this. So, kind of retirement communities and retirement housing that is kind of, I suppose, designed specifically for older people, and to a certain extent kind of segregates them from the rest of the society. And whether that was the most appropriate way to do it. And certainly a lot of funding and a lot of kind of policy work goes into developing more of this type of housing. And we're starting to question whether that's the most suitable solution, or certainly whether that should be the main solution, given that in surveys very, very, very consistently, the vast majority of people would like to stay in their own homes and in their own communities. And so it's one of the pieces I wrote was kind of contrasting retirement housing in the UK with the situation in Australia. I've been to Australia a few times, and I think both that the kind of the way people link up from a kind of society perspective is quite different in Australia, and retirement housing tends to be very different. I was kind of looking at some pictures preparing for today, and that this kind of is more of a typical retirement community in Australia, where it's kind of more likely to be bungalows than kind of flats in high rise blocks. But I think the other thing is that quite a lot of the papers that say we need more retirement housing in the UK says it, or makes the case that there's more in Australia, more in New Zealand, and more in the US. When I don't think we're that similar in terms of houses we live in and kind of the way society works, that's necessarily a direct correlation between different countries. I mean, they have lots of other different things in those countries that we don't necessarily say we would have over here, just because they exist somewhere else. And some of the other points I was making was around universal design and the way we design housing and services. And there's another kind of person that I've kind of bumped into virtually on LinkedIn is Professor Per-Olof Hedvall from Sweden, and he does a series of blogs and articles around universal design, which is where these kind of next few slides are taken from. And he's a wheelchair user himself, and one of his articles was talking about the design of trains, and this was a photo that he took from his position on a train journey in Sweden, which so it's not too different from the trains that we have here. And he was saying, I've kind of put a picture of a British train there just for reference, that the train was accessible. There were no steps to get in. There was a ramp to get kind of on and off, or even potentially it was kind of a level platform. There was access to a large toilet and kind of a place where he could sit. He got from point A to B, and the train's design met basic accessibility standards. But from a usability perspective, you see on this particular image, he didn't have a table, didn't have a power outlet, and he couldn't do work on his laptop as he'd planned. So he wasn't particularly satisfied with the situation, didn't get anything done, and he felt isolated from the other kind of normal, typical passengers, as he put it, and felt treated as different and less worthy. And so for Per Olaf, the usability was rubbish. And then universal design is kind of saying it was not even close. And it's a good example, or per example, depending on your perspective, of something that's been designed rather recently but still has outdated values, and where a universal design set probably would have inspired a different layout and experience. And his kind of thinking work develops this kind of onion diagram in terms of the layers of accessibility, usability, and then universal design. So with the universal, the usability level, you get kind of effectiveness, efficiency, and some satisfaction, but you're still not getting equality, non-stigmatization, and that intersectionality that you get with universal design. And I think that kind of follows through to most of the housing that we design in the UK and in England. That and certainly in the kind of social housing sector, we either build houses like this that have no handrails, no alarms, no level access showers, no great accessibility features, or we build housing like this which has more handrails, ramps, showers, grab rails, alarms than you can shake a stick at. And is there something in the middle that is kind of the Goldilocks situation where we're actually developing housing that remains within intergenerational local communities, that is also accessible and suitable for anybody that has a disability, and certainly as kind of age and may struggle more with stairs and steps. So that was my kind of thinking as part of the post.